Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. We are joined live now by Mary Kacaba. Excited to have her here. She's a hypnotherapist, owner of her own company. It's called Resources Within. Welcome to the show today. How are you?
Excellent, Jill. Thank you for being here and having me come here with you. It's exciting.
Well, we are very excited to have you. I know you're from Cincinnati, Ohio. Please, for those new listeners out there today, let's introduce yourself, Mary. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist, which is the highest level of ranking in my field of hypnotherapy. I have 29 years of experience working one-on-one with clients and also with groups. I love to introduce people to the therapeutic uses of hypnotherapy and dispel a lot of the myths of what sometimes people think, hypnotherapy, oh, you're going to control me or make me cluck like a chicken or bark like a dog or do things against my will. And I actually connect you to the resources within you, which is why I name my business Resources Within.
And by the way, that's the website, correct? Resourceswithin.com?
Yes, .com.
Perfect. So why don't we start off with, hey, what exactly is hypnotherapy? Let's talk about it and dispel some of those myths so people really can understand what it is. And we'll get into some of the benefits, obviously, of course, as well.
Well, hypnotherapy is a state of relaxation that I guide you into, which accesses the subconscious mind. And by accessing the subconscious mind, you bypass the critical, analytical kind of guard that is the conscious mind. And by accessing the subconscious mind, that's entering into the storehouse of all of our experiences. It's kind of like going to your own library. And sometimes there's content in your library that can be undermining or debilitating, and many times there is content in your library that's inspiring, that's fulfilling, that's motivating. But sometimes people feel disconnected from that positivity that's innate and natural instead of put on. And so I guide you into a state of relaxation so that you can really connect in with that deeper level of inner knowing within yourself and use those tools and use that energy in your body to propel you forward to do the things that you're meant to do, that you kind of know it on the inside, but sometimes there's a disconnect in being able to implement it in the outside world.
Well, this is exciting work. So if you go to the website, which I did earlier, Resources Within, you right on the main page talks about some of the benefits in a sense. Are you depressed? Are you trying to lose weight? I mean, there is how many different benefits to hypnotherapy? Could you talk about some of the reasons why people would go to someone like you? And by the way, you do virtual work clearly as well.
Yes, absolutely. On Zoom and Skype. On Zoom and Skype, I see clients virtually and also, of course, in person. And some of the benefits, well, they're vast. I believe that they're endless because anything that you can think of, hypnotherapy can address. Literally, that's not an overstatement. So I help people with things like fears, phobias, depression, and anxiety. Those two things are going to be the major focus of today's interview since they're so common for my clients to be feeling, and people in general are just really
And let's be honest, with the past 2.5 years of the pandemic, I'm sure you're seeing an increase in many people with anxiety and depression and all the above.
I am. With pain, I am. And people are in pain. And the beauty of hypnotherapy is it really helps you take a deeper dive into the preciousness and the powerfulness of who you are. So I help people also address pain management and sleep disorders. I help people quit smoking. I help people lose weight. I help people connect with their self-confidence, just getting ready for medical procedures and embracing their own worth, which is sometimes can be something that derails us when we don't feel that level of satisfaction in our lives, is because we don't have that self-respect that's intact.
All right. Well, we have a lot to get to today, and I don't know where you want to start because we do have a lot of content here, and I know the time goes quick. So, did you want to start with, the applications of hypnotherapy in a sense?
Well, there are many applications, and part of applying hypnotherapy is having a safe place and someone that you trust. And I really am very good at helping people come to know that they can trust me, feel safe. And in that relationship that I build through a free 20-minute phone consultation to prepare a client for the hypnotherapy process. And the hypnosis process is 3 hours long. So I
Wow.
do a deep dive. I create a safe place for you to look inside and find that part of you that you can trust. And with that, I really want to concentrate today on depression and anxiety because as we've said, it's running rampant and it's kind of getting us. Sometimes my clients will say, "I feel like I'm in a sumo wrestler kind of situation where, bam, take me down."
Yeah.
A part of me just is like an inner saboteur, and part of the energy that's going on with depression is repression. So a lot of times we feel repressed, we feel put down, we feel fearful and afraid, and sometimes we harbor resentments, which and other kinds of unexpressed emotions that can develop into depression, which creates a chemicalogical response in the brain, which turns into an actual medical diagnosis of depression. And so I'm really good at helping people check in and inquire within their own subconscious mind to help them determine what's going on related to the needs that aren't getting met. And so we pay attention to each one of those, unpack each one of those. And although it's a thorough, personalized process, the time really zooms along, and there's great benefit in each lengthy hypnotherapy session. And that's what I do is help people like listen to themselves and acknowledge what's going on in there that's churning around, that's that's tweaking them off of their center, and maybe even helping you find your center, find your balance that you may have had a long time ago and lost, or you may never have actually had it, which is
Wow.
sad, but sometimes the reality. So I help people. I sometimes, in a non clinical kind of way, I say I help them get a hold of themselves.
Okay. And how many sessions does it take to change, to start this new behavioral pattern in a sense with the hypnosis to change? I mean, is one just enough for some people?
Sometimes, and I've specifically designed it in such a way that the 3 hour session really does help address the layers of pain, the layers of whatever the disconnection is or the lack of interconnectedness or the lack of authenticity or the lack of congruency. Sometimes we're completely incongruent with what we believe and how we show up in the world. So I've designed and learned over my earlier years that, a shorter session just kind of scratches the surface. So a longer, complete 3 hour session can be hugely beneficial and just forge you forward in your life. And there are other clients that have been in traditional therapy or other forms of mental health treatment where a 3 session package, so that's 3 3 hour sessions, is something I offer. And that's still really quick and really direct and really deeply transformative. And I also do a 6 session package, so that's 6 3 hour sessions. And you can use that over time. And you can also share these packages with another friend, a loved one. I have couples that come in and do the
Mm-hmm.
6 session package, each do 3, and then they come together in a more united fashion. Or you could do it with your child. I work with children as young as 7 and adults, into their hundreds. If you can live that long.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And let me just find, I think it's important that we get to know you as a whole, as a person in the meantime. I mean, where did this start? Where did your passion of hypnotherapy come from? And could you talk a little about, how you grew up and how this became your career path and love?
Sure. I was first introduced to hypnotherapy through a friend who was being trained to become a hypnotherapist, and she asked if I would become her guinea pig. She wanted to practice, and I thought, well, I don't know, this hypnotherapy stuff is a little odd, but okay, I care about you, and I'm intrigued. So I became her client, and I loved it. I thought, oh my gosh, I feel like I might want to change careers. I was a
Wow.
civil engineering draftsman for 11 years. And then
Okay.
so I have a high technical aptitude. And instead of engineering now in a physical sense by designing, um, neighborhoods and sanitary sewers and such like that, I help people re-engineer their brains. And it's done in a collaborative way. It's not about me controlling the client. It's about the client tuning in to find their truth and where it is they lost themselves so that they can redirect themselves to get back into a more genuine kind of way of being. So
Wow.
that's how I got into the field, and I became a hypnotherapist myself, and I just find it very rewarding. And I also grew up in the Unity Church.
Yeah. You
I
mentioned some pastors that are mentors of yours, and I know, that was important to you as well. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Well, I specifically, Reverend Jack Barker and Reverend Pat Barker were my ministers at New Thought Unity Center in East Walnut Hills in Cincinnati for almost 30 years. So I started attending the Unity Church when I was 9 years old, and I'm 61 now. And they've been retired for probably a little more than 20 years. But I just love the philosophy of unity and the implementation of the Unity Church, which kind of awakened a spiritual component in me. And my parents were very much, um, real mentors in that sense of the word. They brought me, along with my grandmother, to church at that young age, and I just found that my spiritual life helps ground me, and it helps me create a sense of order and a sense of worthiness and a connection to a higher power, to my creator, is what I believe. But you also don't need to be spiritual to work with me. In fact, I have some clients that say, I don't want any of that voodoo, weird, woo woo stuff, Mary. I just want to be able to ask my boss for a raise, or I want to forgive my mother, or I want to, um, I just want to take a risk, and I feel like I'm, um, I'm off my game. I don't know who I am anymore, and so I've just succumbed to wanting approval from others. And so hypnotherapy is a wonderful way to be able to tune in and listen and even rescue yourself from
Yeah.
situations that you might be still dangling in or still tied up in, that are over and gone years ago, decades ago. And so it's always an interesting inner journey that is very freeing and very liberating and very validating. So I just love it, and it works for most people that are really struggling, and those that are wanting to better themselves and have more inner peace, so there can be some outer peace in this crazy world we're living in.
And Mary, would you mind sharing some examples of some of the clients you've helped without using their names, of course, but give us some insight to, the work you've done and how much you've helped people, that people out there listening today or watching can empathize the work you do and say, wow, maybe I can better myself this way. Or would you mind giving us some examples?
Well, I had a client that suffered from this affliction. Really, it was trauma that happened to her more than 50 years ago. And she had been having nightmares for many, many, many years, most of the time since that occurrence. And it was so traumatic that it really rocked her world, and
Mm-hmm.
she was uncertain of herself, and she would talk badly about herself and represent just a kind of a crippled version of herself, when I could see that she really was ready to have a breakthrough and take on some leadership responsibilities. And so I guided her into this process and re-entered it. Now, sometimes clients do not want to re-enter the trauma, but she felt like, wait a minute, now that I'm older, now that I've learned
Yeah.
about life and I trust myself more, and I'm ready to go in there and kind of fix and mend and, bring the situation into a place of me being empowered instead of me feeling victimized. So that's one example. I mean, I can go on and on with forgiveness even. There's some parents that have parented their children, clients of mine that have been abused. I sometimes call it misused because their sweet spirit is misused, and sometimes parents don't know better. They've been poorly parented, or they have a lot of pain and unresolved experiences in their lives that, just not just trickle out, but just gurgle out all over their children. And then their children are left to do the inner work. And by really um, journeying back in time and revisiting those times, and some of my clients just want to kind of a witness, like an
Yeah.
observational kind of
Wow.
situation where they just want to feel a lot of compassion and feel a releasing and a letting go. And it's said that really forgiveness is done for us
Yeah.
because sometimes we're held hostage to the experiences that we've undergone that are just almost too much to manage at the time. But by revisiting and pulling in the power of the subconscious mind, which houses the cause and the cure of any discord, that's why we go there.
Wow.
Is to experience the freedom that's generated from deep inside each person.
Got it.
And
And
there's a freeing of that.
just to also point out, Alchemy Institute is where you received your degree from, your certification, correct?
Yes,
Very
yes.
prestigious school. Just want to point that out. And let's remind our listeners of all forms of contact for you, website, phone number, and email, anything in particular you want to, give to us.
Well, my website is resourceswithin.com.
Yep.
My phone number is 513-675-1120. I can also be texted to that number. Please do.
Love it.
And my email is my name, Mary Kacaba, which my last name is spelled Kacaba. So it's MaryKacaba at gmail.com.
Now, I know today you wanted to focus a little more on the mental health aspect and anxiety, but I do have to ask one question because I saw it on your list
Okay.
of services about past
Oh,
life regression. That's
oh.
also something hypnotherapy can tap into.
It is.
I didn't
And
know
that's
that.
it is. It's one of the most common questions. I have really three common questions, or three most predominant things people can connect to hypnotherapy. One is weight loss, one is quitting smoking, and I'm excellent at helping people do that, and past life regression. And what I do with past life regression is guide you back in time to a previous lifetime that you've experienced, to be able to re-enter that time. And I know it sounds woo woo, and it sounds very just like you might not be able to trust it, but when it comes from
Yeah.
within your inner knowing, in your own experiences, when those realizations and the sensations arise from within you, and is like very, very confirming and very like, whoa, there's really something to this. And the reason why I do past life regression is to help address any like frailties or any parts of you that you feel like you just can't
Yeah.
resurrect. You just can't use. There's some kind of interruptive energy that can trace back to before you were born. And a lot of times when my clients say, well, I kind of came in like this.
Yeah.
I was the weakest link in my family. I was the misfit. I can't get ahead in life. Like, I feel like there's a black cloud over me. And I say, oh, it sounds like past life regression.
Yeah.
Or if you have some kind of an illness, you have an allergy or some kind of any kind of medical thing, can often be from a past life for things that were unresolved for you physically, emotionally, and also physiologically, especially when doctors can't figure it out,
True.
or you just feel like you can never really get the care that should be available for you somewhere. Although the doctors are very trustworthy, certainly, and we've made huge medical advancements that thank goodness we have in our culture. And on top of that, hypnotherapy is really making more of a name for itself when sometimes people don't want to use the allopathic medicine, would rather access their own uniqueness and the power and presence of who they are as a human being.
Wow. Amazing work you do. And we still have more time to talk. Mary, what else do you want to share about you and your services? And of course, how you can help everyone?
Well, I love to dispel myths, as we kind of spoke about
Yep.
before. A lot of people will think that if they come to me, they lay before me and they go into a deep state of consciousness and they don't remember what happens and they feel like they'd have to give up control. And that isn't really
Not
what
it.
happens.
Okay.
They do have to let go. They have to be willing to look inside themselves. And if you're not willing to do that, then that working with me would not be a good match. But if you're willing to look and see, and especially you could be so frustrated that nothing else has worked, and then you're like, wow, I'm going to try this hypnotherapy thing. I've read things online about it. There's so many positive benefits and so many positive accountings of how hypnotherapy has helped people. And by looking at the energy in your body, the actual physical cellular structure, which houses the experiences, and this might sound weird, but this is what I do, is I actually interview the cells in your body. And
Ooh.
they have something to say and show you about the discord, the interruptedness, where whatever it is that's causing stress, anxiety, depression, drama, illness. And so I take you into a journey into your body, which can be very revealing and very enlightening, like, oh my gosh, that's what's going on for me.
Yeah.
And it's very it kind of gives you more of an assignment that has come from inside of you and not from me. So trusting me to help you relax and then commune with yourself, an actual communion. And whether you like that spiritual word or not, it's a tuning in. It's like Mary meet Mary, Jill meet the real Jill.
Yeah.
And then when we come to face with ourselves, we can become very loving and very soft. And we can become just whatever it is we need to do, because we might be mad at ourselves. We might
Mm-hmm.
be pissed off. We might be resentful. We might be angry. And so I welcome. It doesn't always have to be fluffy and pretty. We can have a knockdown drag out with ourselves about why we haven't been listening, why we haven't been following through with what we know we need to do. And so I help clear that away. I help clear the way for you to be able to stand firm for yourself and with yourself, to take a stand and take some action in a way that is very fulfilling and very um, just very, very, I don't know, validating, the same word I used before, but it's so affirming. And sometimes that's what people are missing. They say, well, I have the job, I have the family, I have the things, but there's still something missing, Mary, and And I feel compassion in that way. And so
Yeah.
going on a journey, I actually co-journey with my clients into the facets of their subconscious mind where there's mending, there's clearing out, and there's clarifying, and there's implementing, and there's instituting, and all kinds of shifts and changes that happen at depth. And then you can even record the session, or I can record the session so that you can listen, re-listen
Yeah, I
to.
was going to say, I've heard of that. You have to re-listen to it all the time. Is that part of the
No,
process as well, or you don't? Some
no,
people,
you really
okay,
don't. You get it. It's like,
okay.
like riding a roller coaster. You don't need to watch the video. I
You're
mean,
right.
that's
You're
not a
right.
good
Yeah, yeah.
example, but
It might
when
scare
you
you.
have a heart-to-heart conversation with
Yeah,
someone that you love and you say things that you've been withholding, you remember that because there is actually a physiological shift and change that happens deep inside of you, with your hormones, with your thinking process, with the way your body functions and even eliminates. Because
yeah.
I work with a lot of people that have irritable bowel syndrome, and there's a lot of locked up. Oh, you do?
Guilty. Oh, yeah, bad. My whole life I've been
Wow.
suffering and just started stem cell therapy treatment for it. But yeah, maybe we can get into that next time. But I would love to hear more about it if you don't mind. Let me just also point out you work with clients ages 7 to 90 plus, right? So this can also help children and young
Yes.
adults.
Yes, all ages. I work with children as young as 7 with things like defiance.
I have
Um,
a 7-year-old. I know all about it.
oh,
Interesting.
wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
And bedwetting,
Both.
ADD, ADHD.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all interconnected. And I help many high school students study for tests, sometimes their own inner self-esteem, like it has been damaged. And
hmm
so they can be afraid to get a good grade on a test because that puts them into a more prominent group of smart students.
Yeah, which is
And,
always
and
intimidating and comes with its other
yeah,
set of problems. But unfortunately, Mary, we're out of time. So let's do this. Let's remind our listeners all forms of contact for you. I can tell them the website if that's okay, right?
yes, please. Yeah.
Um, oh, wait, the website. Why is it not off the top of my head? You tell me the website.
Resources, yeah,
Within.
resourceswithin.com.
Thank you.
Resources within, because it's about the resources within you that I help bring forth.
And phone number to reach out just in case someone wants to do that or text as well.
513-675-1120.
Well, thank you so much for enlightening our listeners and myself as well in regards to hypnotherapy, all the benefits of it, and looking forward to diving in deeper the next time we get to speak.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you so much. You have a great
All
day. And
right.
to all of our
Take
listeners,
care.
stay tuned. More of the show is on the way.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.